player game object is complete, but we're not quite done yet. Now, we need to create the allies for the player. The two allies for the player are a sheep and a dog. In this section, we're going to create the sheep, and in the next, we're going to create the dog. What you'll see is that the steps are very similar for both, and the same workflow can be applied to each game object to achieve different yet similar results. I'm going to start by locating the sheep model. I'm going to go to my models folder, and then the characters subfolder. I'm going to locate the sheep and drag it into my scene. Now the sheep is a little bit smaller than I'd like, so I'm going to go ahead and make it bigger. I could scale the sheep up, however, that's really unnecessary and inefficient. Instead, I'm just going to change how it imports. I'm going to click on the sheep FBX file in the project window. And then in the model import settings, I'm going to change the scale factor to 2. Then I'm going to hit apply. We'll see that the sheep doubles in size and now is big enough to be an ally for the player. The next thing I'd like to do is I'd like to place an animation on the sheep so that it looks like it's walking. Doing this is actually quite simple. I'm going to allow Unity to automatically generate the Animator controller for the sheep by simply applying an animation. To do this, again I'm going to go to the sheep.fbx model in the project window, and I'm going to expand it by clicking on the arrow to the right of the sheep image. I'm going to locate the move animation that's nested inside the sheep.fbx file. I'm going to click and drag that onto the sheep in the hierarchy. If done correctly, I will see an animator controller named sheep appear in my project window. Additionally, I will see a controller named sheep appear in the animator component of my sheep. I want to avoid clicking and dragging the move animation directly onto the sheep in the scene view, as that won't put the sheep animation on the sheep game object parent, but instead on the skinned mesh renderer underneath. That will cause it to not work correctly. Therefore, when you're following this step, you will definitely want to click and drag the move animation onto the sheep parent game object in the hierarchy. Now that I have my sheep animator controller, I know that I completed that step correctly, and I'm going to click and drag the sheep animator controller over to my animations folder. This is simply to keep it nice and organized. If I want, at this point I'm going to hit play and see the sheep performing its walking animation. Now, since the sheep is going to navigate around the scene using the nav mesh we generated in a previous chapter, I'm going to need to apply a nav mesh agent component to the sheep game object. I'm going to do that by clicking Add Component, Navigation, Nav Mesh Agent. While looking at the sheep, I can notice this nav mesh agent isn't quite big enough. As a matter of fact, the sheep's head will be able to clip through a lot of stuff. So we need to make the radius bigger. I'm going to change the radius to be 1. It's still not quite perfect, but it should be good enough. The last thing I need to do to prepare the sheep as an ally is to apply the ally script to it. I'm going to go to the scripts folder and look at the player subfolder. There I'll find the ally script, which I'm going to click and drag onto the sheep game object. The ally script needs to know how long in seconds it will stay in the game once we've summoned it. I generally choose 10 seconds. If we open the ally script, we can see it's quite simple. Besides the variable declarations at the top and the reset method, we have only one other method, a public void method named move, which reads in a vector3 variable named point. Then, we simply call navmeshagent.setDestinationPoint. Creating the ally and determining where the ally is supposed to go is handled by another script, the ally manager. We'll add the ally manager to our game in a later chapter where we handle attacks. Now that the sheep ally game object is complete, we're going to go ahead and turn that into a prefab. I'm going to open up the prefabs folder and select the characters subfolder. Then, to turn the sheep into a prefab, I'm simply going to click and drag the sheep game object from the hierarchy to the project window.